What's up, friends? My name's Aaron Ciotti. Everybody calls me Ciotti, and I'm very hungover. Have low expectations for this live stream because I'm just happy to be alive. Over here, you'll see that my dignity is officially for sale. For every half an hour of this stream, if we've got another $100 in there, I will keep this absolutely ridiculous women's small shirt on that my lovely college professor girlfriend just had to have. She just had to buy this shirt last night. I couldn't talk her out of it. It's not true. If she's watching this, she's gonna call me and stab me through the phone. Patrick, Monica, his wife, Maggie and I went to a comedy club in downtown Atlanta last night, and one of the comedians after the show was selling these t-shirts, and I was like, you gotta buy it, we gotta support, you gotta buy it. She's like, okay, and she buys it, and then this morning she looks at it, she's like, I can't even bring that home with me, that's gotta stay here. And then she did the thing that I do to her all the time, which is she says to me, you won't wear that on the stream, you won't. How you like me now? So yeah, at 20 minutes from now, if this 0 has become 100, I will keep this on. Otherwise, it's coming off. It's very uncomfortable. It's a woman's small shirt. I kind of can't believe that it fits. That's a lie. I can totally believe that it fits. But it's sparkly green, and it says something that I just find absolutely hysterical. And anybody that really knows my story of last year with some certain things that happened will really get a kick out of this. So, welcome to Sunday Q&A. Sorry for clapping in your ear. I'm just, yeah. Nothing. My brain's not working. My body hurts. My stomach hurts. I was up most of the night. Yeah. This girl parted me under the table, friends. I got a live one on my hands, and I'm very excited. We all had such a good time last night. And then yeah, we came back here and just continued to drink. And I really don't drink. Yeah. Party girl, man. Oh boy, this is gonna be fun. In the chat, I've pinned a message, and now that's covering up the first person that commented. Somebody commented first, and then GrizzFPV commented next. Glenn Burnett, FinnFPV, JRFPV, ImpFPV, Hart, Max Whelan, Demo, Espander, Frank Nicholas, S. Grace, Velvix, TweetFPV is in the house. What's up? Oh. That's Yellow Captain, Northern Tier FPV, Jiggy Drones. Jiggy Drones is my new favorite YouTube name. Apone is in the house. I haven't seen you in a while, brother. Good. Northern Tier FPV, Martin Wynn, JR, Riot 9, Brandon's Baked Beans, Hypnos, Remy Tim, YouTube just did the thing, Michael, June Loco, Brandon's Baked Beans, Espander super chatted 5.7. When I get to it in the chat, I'll add it. Whew, boy. Don't get old, kids. If you do get old, don't drink. Thurberg 2500, Paul McDonald, Ed K, Brandon's Baked Beans again, Martin Wynn, Boys FPV, June Loco, Hendrix, Chris, Abraham. If you want the gangly man to read your shirt while wearing a ridiculous name. If you want the gangly man to read your name while he's wearing a ridiculous shirt. Now my voice is cracking. This is all gone bad. It's all bad. All right, there it is. A Spander with a $4 20-pound super chat. I'm gonna round that up to $5 cheeseburger dollars. Yeah, you guys can do PayPal too. Hey, this is my full-time job. If you want to see these live streams continue, usually they're gonna be better than this one. I promise. Head on over to CiottiFPV.com, and there's a ton of buttons you can click. They all help. Whole bunch of affiliate links. If you are ever doing an order on Amazon, FPV Crate, FPV Cycle, Oh My God's website, and a bunch of others, Get FPV. If you hit one of my affiliate links before you check out, I get free money, and it helps a ton. So replace your bookmarks with my affiliate links, and then you don't even have to think about it. Or if you just type into the URL bar, go to your URL bar, type get, it'll give you the first, regular Get FPV search result. Kill that. Click the X on that to get rid of that, and then hit my affiliate link. And my affiliate link, next time you type get, my affiliate link should be the top one that you hit. You can do that with all those websites. That's what I've had to do because I don't use bookmarks. Damn, Remy Tim with a $40 PayPal. He says, no dignity. Thank you, Dan, for supporting the insanity. So we are roughly halfway there to me having to keep this shirt on beyond 330. At 330, if we're at 100, then you guys have bought my dignity. And, wait, am I getting the... No, I'm getting the math right. If you want to do a super chat, that's great. If you don't want YouTube and Google to take 30% of your money, you can head over to CiottiFPV.com, and there's a PayPal button. You can do a PayPal, and I have my email sitting up here. Yeah. You can do that if you'd like. I have an Etsy store with a bunch of really fun stickers that you're going to love, and a bunch of hardware that'll help you during your builds. Some really unique stuff in there too, so definitely check the Etsy store out. Fiverr page if you want to work one-on-one with me. I'm going to help you fly better, build better, tune better, and just answer, one-on-one any questions that you've got. And there's also a Teespring store with shirts that are not quite as insane as this one, but man, I cannot recommend wearing women's t-shirts. These short sleeves look great on the ladies, but woohoo! As with many things with women, very uncomfortable. The lengths that women go to look hot. Ooh boy, it's wild. I couldn't do it. I wouldn't be able to do it. I'd be like, no, I'll just look less hot and be more comfortable. Maybe you get used to it. If you want to talk directly to me in the chat, all you gotta do is type CiottiFPV and it'll light up an orange. I pinned a little note at the top that says this, but I'll keep going over it. Yeah, this is what it looks like when you guys type CiottiFPV. So do it if you want me to see your comment, otherwise I'll assume that you guys are talking amongst yourselves. Which you should, because the community in the chat here is second to none. Amazing people, super smart, super talented, great pilots, great builders. So yeah, take advantage of that. GrizzFPV says, what the hell? JRFPV says, what's up? ImpFPV says, in my experience, I have the cleanest builds. As a result, the more stoned I am. Can't say how because stoned. Interesting topic, looking forward to it. HeartFPV says, what up? Did you like that joke I sent you earlier? I think I know which one, Heart. That was a good one. TweetFPV says, what's up? Yellow Captain says, how you doing? I feel terrible, but hey, I'm here. Scrolling. Abraham says, howdy collective. Leaf says that shirt is hilarious. Expander's super chat. There we go. Thanks again, brother. Abraham says, danced on a bar in his tighty whities, didn't he? No, I behaved. In the comedy club. Remy Tim says, no dummy, check your PayPal. got it. Your Majesty says, just set CiottiFPV link tree to my homepage. Oh, that's cool. Thanks, brother. Your Majesty says, wait, so if we don't get the money, do you take the shirt? I do. I take this shirt off, but I put another shirt on. I put a unisex or male shirt on. Velvic says, can you say, welcome to OpenTX? Welcome to OpenTX. Welcome to OpenTX. Welcome to EdgeTX. Welcome to hell. Max Whalen says, what is your opinion on mounting Vistas with screws? I haven't done it yet. I've never put a Vista in a build, but I will be. Either this week, probably not this week, or next week. Next week, I think I'm going to do DJI week. I now have an... There she is. There she is. Maggie, you probably want to rewind, because I threw you right under the bus. Just right under the bus you went. And the wheels on the bus go round and round. Yeah. You should rewind and watch. You'll get very upset with me. Apone says, yeah, so I haven't mounted it, but from what I understand, the Vistas pass voltage and ground through the goddamn mounting holes? What? Somebody please tell me that that's not true. But I don't think you'll be able to, because I've heard that that's true. Which is just... like, come on. What? What is this, 1999? So apparently, and I've heard this during the conversation of, hey, the best way to mount your Vista is VHB on the bottom, and then you just run zip ties up through the mounting holes. So that's how I'm going to be doing mine, although I'm actually not going to use VHB. I'm going to use heat transfer tape on eBay. It's not true that the list passes voltage through the mounting holes. Thank God. Then why are people mounting their Vistas with zip ties rather than screws? Is it weight? Hey, the chat, for some reason YouTube deleted... Usually what I do is, YouTube usually allows me to copy previous stream settings, and for some reason when I logged in today, all the previous streams were gone, so I wasn't able to copy settings. So the chat delay is, like, cranked up, because that's the default. There's a bunch of things that defaulted on the stream. So yeah, I love that is not true. That, wherever I heard that, I was like, what the hell is happening? I guess the thought process then behind using the zip ties and VHB is just weight, and that's fine. Let's actually weigh a bunch of the, now I'm going to take a guess. I think I've heard the Vista is 13 millimeters tall. So then you've got like another 2 to 3 millimeters for the base plate. So let's weigh 4 M2 by 15. You know, that's pretty close. Screws, and we'll see what the weight savings would be. So there, I'm going to do an M2 by 14. I'm going to do 4 M2 by 14 screws. It's 1.3 grams. I'd probably need M2 by 16 because you need a little bit of leeway for the nuts on top. That's what she said. So that's, you know, 1.6, 1.7 grams. That's not, that doesn't make, I'm not doing that. I am still going to use the heat transfer tape. I'm going to put the heat transfer tape on the bottom, and then I'm going to just use the screws to pull the damn thing down into the heat transfer tape, and that'll make sure that it kind of conforms to as much of the metal as possible, for it to work as well as possible. So, yeah, that's going to be my deal. In 10 more minutes, if we're not at 100 here, I get to take this ridiculous shirt off. Oh, no, hold on. I got to check my email. Michael D with a $20, I guess I'm not. Michael D with a $20 PayPal. I have a feeling I'm going to be wearing this shirt for most of the stream. 45 goes up to 65. Thank you very much, Michael D, for helping purchase my dignity. If at some point we get up to $100, for that half an hour, I'll wear the... Wait, no. If... Yeah. If we get to 100... yeah, there'll be a half an hour period that I'll put the shirt back on. And then we've got a little bit of Martin Wynn with $12.90. Thank you very much, Martin. Now I get to do some math. 6 becomes 7. 5 also becomes 7. And I'm going to round it up to 78. All right. Let me get caught up on chat. So yeah, that's my plan for the Vistas. Thank God. I've been actually meaning to ask you guys in chat about the voltage through the mounting holes things on the Vistas, but I was gonna wait until DJI week. So yeah, next week I think is gonna be DJI week, where I put Vistas into maybe both Cinewhoops, maybe both Cinesplores, maybe just one. I don't know, maybe both. It's I'm scared to go all the way in because I don't know much about DJI, but I assume in the process of DJI week I will learn enough that my fear is that I get on set with it and it's doing something funny and I don't know how to troubleshoot it, right? But I'm just using it for the video link, so it should either work or not work, you know? Man, I feel like a big old bag of shit. Apone says, have you tried the new Gyroflow? It works amazing even with the RunCam 5. I have not. I don't really have a reason to use Gyroflow. The Insta360 Go 2 built-in software works better than it with the Insta360 products, of course. For GoPros, I have RealSteady Go, which is going to work better than it because RealSteady Go's been around forever. And the RunCam hybrids, they have props in view. So Gyroflow, it would just be super distracting having those props in view moving all around. And I don't like the way that stabilized freestyle footage looks. It takes away all of the sharpness, and I think the sharpness is really kind of important and looks really, really good. I have a really hard time watching stabilized freestyle footage. It gets very boring to me. Because everything is soft. All of the movements are soft. You can't have this staccato where you really. One of the things that I love about the way that these rigs fly and the way that we've learned to fly them all together as a big FPV community, is that they have this incredible authority and they can snap movements really, really quickly. And one of the things that you can do is snap a movement and then be really smooth, and then snap another movement and be really smooth. And that's very dramatic, and it really kind of pulls me into the flying. And so yeah, when freestyle footage is hyper smooth or rock steady, I think is what DJI calls it, or Gyroflow or RealSteady Go, I just don't think it looks very good. I just think it looks kind of overproduced. So yeah, I don't have anything to run with Gyroflow. If I were flying a Cinelifter with a Z-Cam or an Arri or a Red or something like that, it would make a lot of sense. But I mean, I'm nowhere near there. That's, you know, that's way, way, way down the road, if ever. I would love to stay on GoPro. There's a lot of advantages to staying on GoPro. So yeah, I just don't have a reason to play around with Gyroflow, other than and I typically don't just like do stuff for the clicks, you know, like I do stuff that I'm interested in, and that makes sense for my sort of workflow, and Gyroflow just doesn't right now. Maybe someday it will, but at the moment it just doesn't. Velvic says, thanks. Michael D says, just jumped in, check your PayPal. Thanks again, brother. Apache says, let's see how hangover you are. What motor is a good replacement for some old 1306 3100 kV? So there's a couple. The three really hot 3-inch freestyle motors right now are actually the 1306s. That's one of them. Emax makes one that's 12x12 motor mount base. RCX makes one that's 9x9 motor mount base. RCX makes it, Emax makes it in 4000 kV, which is great. RCX makes it in 4000 and 6000, which is really great. I love those motors. They have the same stator volume. No, they have a little bit more stator volume than another motor that I love, which is the iFlight Zing 1504, which I believe comes in 3900 kV, which is good for 4S on 3-inch. And then there's the Toka 1505 if you want more stator volume. So the 1504, and then 1306, and then 1505, from small stator volume to biggest stator volume. All four of those motors actually will move around a 3-inch freestyle rig like you wouldn't believe. 220 grams all the way up to like 280 grams, to be honest with you. Those motors are also smooth running. There are other motors out there with a similar stator volume, but they are notchy, and notchy motors are awful on micros. So yeah, those are your four really good motor options for a really impressive 3-inch freestyle rig that you can put an Insta360 Go 2 on, or you can put a Runcam hybrid into and get really, really, really nice 4K footage. Frank Nicholas says, it's not true. Got that. Espander says, no, it doesn't. Good. All my Vistas are mounted with bolts via the mounting holes. Awesome. CiottiFPV says, not true. Great. Abraham says, they definitely don't pass voltage through the mounting holes. Just check yourself. The community function, continuity function on your multimeter. JR says, bullshit, all 8 mine are hard mounted with M2 screws. Rubin Sim says, if I remember correctly, the case is grounded, so if you have something else sending voltage into the frame, it will short, but that's the least of your worries. So I guess that's what's going on. I guess that's the deal, is that the case is, yeah, okay, so that makes a lot of sense. Here's what's nuts. I would not... so Joshua Bardwell is actually who I heard saying that using the zip ties to mount it is a really good solution. And I would not think that... And he's doing that now. And I wouldn't think that he would to save 2 grams. It's interesting. Maybe I'll try it with the zip ties, because saving weight is saving weight. But the first time that those zip ties break, I'm out. Like, I'm not dealing with that. That seems insane. But, yeah, I mean, if the case is grounded... Because, you know, like, all kinds of funky shit happens in crashes. Wires rip off, and they can touch the carbon, and, yeah, I mean... Interesting. I think I'll do the zip tie thing. I'll give it a shot. And we'll see. If they break, it'll be good crash feedback for you guys. If they don't break, saved yourself a gram. Or maybe not, because the zip ties are going to weigh something. Zip ties might weigh the same. But if the case is grounded, then if I can have an easy solution to not have that touching conductive carbon, that's a win. FPV Tracker says that's not true with the Vista. Espander says my Vistas are mounted directly to carbon with 4 metal screws. Martin Wynn says PayPal $12.90. Thank you again, Martin. Yellow Captain says the reason why people use VHB is for shock absorption. That's interesting. I've heard that the Vistas are pretty much indestructible though. Interesting. Tweet FPV says because some people want to replace the zip ties every time they crash. Yeah, that's what I'm worried about. That's why I was kind of shocked when I heard that. Hypnos FPV says, God. Did you ever get the final animation I gave you a few weeks back? I did, Hypnos, but this old ass computer doesn't like it. It works great on the M1 Mac, which I will be switching over to at some point here. So yeah, I'm gonna start using it soon. Thank you for that, dude. It's super cool. I can't wait to start using it. Abraham says weight and convenience. Some people like to use zip ties to hold their RXs on that's why you loop those zip ties up over the RX, and that's why I'll do it too. I like that a lot. That's why I'm gonna use the zip ties. Okay, good call, Aber. That's the way. And now, as soon as I started reading your comment, I was like, right, I remember Joshua saying that. Cool. Martin Wynn, got you. Michael D. Oh, look at that. Hold on. I think I get to put on a male shirt now. Hold on. Maybe not. YouTube did the thing. Oh, McConnell Studios with a $35 super chat. Thank you, brother. 7, 8, 9, 10. So we got, and then 8, 5, 3. I think I did this math right. I think we're at 113. Thank you. Thank you, dude. Thank you, Matt. All right, so we're in it until 4 o'clock. 28 more minutes. If this 113 says 200 by 4 o'clock Eastern time here, 28 minutes from now, I'll keep this absurd shirt on. Oh my God. I love this girl so much. You guys have no idea. No idea. Michael D says, at the dog park, so couldn't stay long. I'll watch the live stream later. Have a good one. Thanks for coming by, Michael. Reading the Wind says, what's up, collective? Headed outside to fly 60 degrees in Denver. DTC has some dope buildings to dive. Very cool. James Flores says, put a Vista in a whoop. No. I am going to put one into a toothpick, though, so that'll be fun. Rusty Signals in the house. What's up, brother? How are you? Good to see you up in here. Rusty is one of the OG Atlanta pilots here. Great guy. June Loco says, build a 75mm whoop with a naked Vista. You'll like it, I hope. No, I won't. I've the Mobula 7 ELRS, which is about as light as it's really going to get with any amount of durability for a 75mm whoop. I don't like flying that because it's too heavy. So to put a Vista on it, it would gain like another, 13, 14, 15 grams, and that would just be a hot mess. So yeah, no real plan to do that. But I am gonna do a the toothpick TP3 that I was building a couple of weeks ago, unsuccessfully because the nameless DVR wasn't working. Could have been user error because I thought it was the Happy Model DVR, but it's gone now. Yeah, that rig is going to get a naked Vista that T-Bird actually sent me. So that'll be pretty cool. I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, tiny whoops, tiny whoops are for flying inside. I fly acro inside, which is extremely difficult. And you really, really, really need them to be lightweight. You know what's interesting is I actually watched some of the stream from Freestyle Friday back. And I really, really, really did notice that I fly more accurately with the Mobula 7, which is a lot lighter than the 0802 rig. So yeah, I'm gonna be kind of playing around with that. Yeah, I didn't. The 0802 rig definitely has better power to weight, for sure. 0802s versus 0702s, but it's on a heavier frame. It's got a heavier canopy. So yeah, I what I think. I don't know. Next time I see Meteor 65 frames in stock, I'm gonna snag a whole bunch of them. Because they're a half a gram lighter than the cockroach frames, and I think I might also try to get my hands on some of the Happy Model canopy and RunCam camera setups. I actually took out this other newbie drone mount that I've had kicking around to weigh it. And it weighs the same as the Goober canopy, unfortunately. So, but I still might mess around with this. So yeah, I'm gonna start becoming a little bit of a weight Nazi with tiny whoops, although within reason, because they need to, because I'm not willing to sacrifice any durability. So we'll see. But my God, that Mobula 6 ELRS with the upgrades that I showed you guys a couple of streams ago, woo boy, that is one hell of a tiny whoop. That you can do some really ridiculous stuff with. So I'm yeah, really, really, really impressed. And it's been incredibly durable too. So Abraham says, make a DJI toothpick like the one I sent you on Discord. It's becoming my favorite because I can just rip it anywhere and everywhere with 4-inch DJI and Crossfire unstoppable. I'm gonna have Ghost on mine, which will be fun. So one of the things I'm looking forward to doing is actually kind of sort of testing the range a little bit with Ghost, because DJI will have wild range, right? So I'll be able to push Ghost pretty hard on that rig, which will be interesting. Renchy308 says, I'm scared to go all the way in. CiottiFPV 2022. Alright. What do we got going on here? Athix says, hey. TweetFPV says, have you seen the preview of RealSteady 2.0? I have. Nurk did a little preview of it. Somebody in the chat last stream said that Tommy did a little review of it as well. I haven't seen Tommy's review yet, but I'm going to check it out. Nurk's review, though, I was like, oh, okay. I was totally happy with RealSteady 1 Go. But, I mean, it is very, very slow, and it looks like RealSteady 2 will be way faster, and that's a huge win. My God. After gigs, I will spend the majority of the night putting footage through RealSteady Go. And, you know, sometimes I'll have flown 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 batteries, and it'll take all night into the next day. And, like, I'm not doing much. Like, I just click, you know, load file, move the sliders a little bit, lock horizon, and I typically don't even need to set sync points, and I just hit go, and then the laptop sits there for many, many hours crunching. It's about an hour or two usually, but yeah, I gotta like listen for it to chill out, and then go back over there and do it again. So it'd be great to have some performance improvements, which makes a lot of sense. RealSteady Go's been out for a long time, so it makes a lot of sense that there'd be a lot of improvements in version 2.0. Athix says, I need some 1403 or 1404 9000 kV motors. I have never seen a motor with that much stator volume have that high of a kV. Yeah, once you get up to stator volume that high, I think the highest kV I've ever seen is 7,500. Maybe not. Maybe 6,000. RCX 1306s, you can get those in 6,000 kV. I think that's the highest that I've seen. Justin Ald says, is the Acroby 65 V3 a good whoop? It is, Justin. Definitely, it's great for beginners. Admittedly, the Mobula 6 ELRS is going to outperform the hell out of it because the motors are much higher kV. That's my one problem with the Acro Bees, is that the motors are too low of a kV. At which point it's like, oh, well, I'll just swap the motors. Well, unfortunately, Newbie Drone used a kind of sort of proprietary plug on their AIO. So to swap motors, you're either going to have to direct solder them, which is very, very, very challenging on such a small board. Or you're going to have to buy some of the JST 1.0 plugs that Newbie Drone uses. And you're going to have to solder those onto the new motors that you buy, which is not quite as painful, but it's still really, really, really challenging because it's incredibly small. And some motors don't have the PCB on them, so some motors you actually can't really do that without soldering wire to wire, and soldering wire to wire just sucks. So it's tough. It's tough. The Newbie Drone Acro Bee is definitely going to be better quality, but the Mobula 6 is going to give you better performance, and it's a lot cheaper. So the other big problem with the Mobula 6 is the frame sucks. But swapping the frame out, you're going to break the frame pretty quickly. Swapping the frame out is no big deal. You can do that without a soldering iron. It's just a bunch of little tiny screws. So yeah, Mobula 6 with a Meteor 65 frame and GemFan tri-blades. I did a video a couple days ago, Mobula 6 upgrade path. Watch that. I give you the correct upgrades that you want to do. That's going to have a rig that performs hilariously well. Apache Smoke says, thanks, you're certainly welcome. Justin Ald says, I got iFlight Zing 8000 kV 1308s. Are they good motors for a 3-inch? So 1308 is going to be a motor that overheats like absolute crazy. The ratio of stator width to stator height that you want to try to be somewhere near is 1:3. So for every 3 millimeters of stator width, you want 1 millimeter of stator height. So the 1308, right? 8. So if the 1308 conformed to that, 08, so you go 8, 16, 24. So a motor that's 8 millimeters tall should be 24 millimeters wide, not 13. When the motor is too tall and not wide enough, it doesn't have enough motor surface in the path of the airflow from the propeller, and the motors overheat very, very quickly. So what a 1308 is going to do, it's going to be a motor that when you go full throttle, you're going to get like a fraction of a second of full power, and then the motor is going to just completely heat soak, and it's going to lose a ton of power. So what's going to happen is you're going to go full throttle, and it's going to go whee as it just completely saturates with heat. And that puts stress on the ESC. It's not good for the motor. It's a really bad situation. So what if you already have those motors, and if you're going to do a build with those motors, just never, ever, 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 ever hold full throttle for more than like a split second. Like just approach it as like just, you never, ever, ever want to do anything other than just a quick blip of full throttle. And you want to try to fly that thing at like as low of a throttle value as possible to try to keep those motors cool. Because yeah, hot motors are a really bad thing. Yeah, typically, so like for, yeah, I mean, realistically, iFlight just should not make a motor of that size. That's just not a motor size that really makes much sense for anything. It's also gonna deliver power like a single turbo 1000 horsepower Supra. In that, like, there's just going to be this gigantic spike of power as you go up through the throttle throw, which is going to make flying it a strange experience. It's going to be a very challenging motor to fly. I'll say that. So if you want to kind of like, swing with a weighted bat and try to get better as a pilot by flying something that's kind of cursed. It could be good for that. I'm trying to look on the bright side as much as I'm trying to look for things that motor might do well. I actually didn't know that anybody made a 1308. That's insane. The 1408s are pretty awful. A 1308 is going to be even worse. So that's rough, man. Yeah, I would also try to pair them with something. I mean, see, here's the thing. Like, that's enough. Technically, that's enough stator volume for like a 200 gram all up weight rig, but my God, it's going to be really hard to fly, and the motors are just going to really overheat all the time. So it's at that point, I'm like, well, you should put it on a lighter weight rig. But then the problem with putting those on a lighter weight rig is it's going to be hideously overpowered. But maybe throttle limit them. Maybe that's the deal. If you don't want to get rid of them, my suggestion, to be really honest with you, is to get rid of them. But if you don't want to get rid of them, you should throttle limit them. Limit them down to like 80%, 70% power. That's going to help with the overheating. It's not going to solve it, because it's just so drastically off the edge of the scale in terms of the 1 to 3 relationship. Yeah, but I would definitely say put a throttle limit on there, and then they'll be a lot more realistic on a lighter weight rig. So yeah, that's what I would say, the path for those. But realistically, if possible, Justin, I would get rid of those motors. Put them up on FPV Exchange or Facebook Marketplace, and get into one of the motors that we talk about on here all the time: 1306, 1306, 1504, 1505. If you're building a heavier weight 3-inch rig, 200 to 280 grams all up weight. Max Whalen says, I hit the ground not hard and almost ejected a Vista held on by VHP and zip ties. Jesus. Alright, well, guess I'm not doing it then. I guess I'm doing screws. And I'll just try to not ever have anything that passes voltage into the carpet. Great. Just right away, somebody's like, yo, I bumped into something and the Vista spit out the side. That's my big fear with it. And I'm not even using VHB. You know, VHB is really, really strong. I'm going to be using this heat transfer tape, which is nowhere near as strong as VHB. So, yeah, unless somebody else in chat says I crashed the shit out of mine and it's never broken the zip ties, I'm not going down that road. That's ridiculous. Abraham says the zip ties are meant to be backup for a strip of VHB on the bottom. CiottiFPV says the Vista mounting with zip ties started with oh my gods. Oh, right. Yeah, Joshua referenced that in his video. Trying to save every ounce possible. It is certainly a compromise over durability. Aha. Got it. Abraham says, don't do zip ties only. Marty says, quoting Tommy, McConnell says, zip tie solution is part of the 250 setup video, which is where I think Joshua got it possibly. Yep, you are right. Martin Wynn says, do we go to use Agent M instead of Agent X now for Crossfire? I think so. I think that's the deal now. My 5-inch RSSI warnings in front of my face. Should I turn off dynamic range and turn it up? I don't like dynamic range. I don't use it. I had a weird experience with it. Maybe it was something else, but I tried to reverse engineer the problem, and I don't know. I changed a bunch of things at once. Turning off dynamic range was one of the things that I changed, and the problem went away. I'm not going to turn it back on because I can't have a failsafe on a set again. I never, ever want that to happen again. So I'm not turning it back on, but you guys probably can, and it's probably fine. But yeah, I'm not turning it back on. Spander says, DJI works differently and digital breakup is different. To be comfortable with it, you'll need to really push the limits a few times somewhere safe to get to know it. Scary at first. Yeah, I'm not super looking forward to that. I know I need to keep an eye on the bits per second. We'll see. I mean, I'm used to 500 milliwatt analog, so, and I've been flying long enough. I've been flying on that like kind of forever. So I have just like in my head an understanding of where I can and can't go, and I always have a really good idea of like, is there clean air between the quad and I? So I should be fine, but yeah, it's definitely going to be an adjustment, and I don't want to get myself into a weird situation. So I'll be very cautious with it at first. FPV Kevlar says, are the Zing 8000 kV, so we talked about that. Oh wait, so there's more info in this one. Got them off of iFlight AL85, and I blew a motor, so I tore it apart and used the Vista elsewhere. But should I get another rebuild the through? No, FPV Kevlar. There's the motor on there blew up because that's a cursed motor size. That's not you. Don't blame yourself for that motor blowing up. That's iFlight's fault. iFlight made a stupid motor, and that bit you in the ass. So if it blew up when you were turtle moding it or something like that, like, maybe you could have... What you guys want to remember with turtle mode is never, ever, ever go full stick with it. Just, like, gentle with turtle mode. Just gentle. And just... You don't need to... And flip yourself back over. Just gentle with turtle mode. And you just... And then you won't blow ESCs or motors. Yeah, so FPV Kevlar, get the hell rid of those motors. They're no good. They're just going to blow up again. Spurton says, I think I lost my Tiny Hawk today. Hit a puddle. What do you recommend for replacement? It depends on a lot of things, Spurton. It depends on where you fly it, when you want to fly it, how loud you need it to be, what other rigs you've got. So yeah, I don't want to just like randomly pick a rig out of the air and say like this is what you should get, because that's not really fair. You know, if I try my best, if I make a recommendation for someone to spend their hard-earned money, that it be a really good recommendation. This is why I love the build planning sessions on Fiverr. I love working with people before they've done a build to make sure that they don't waste $80 on an ESC that's known to catch on fire, for example. You know, I've been in the game for over 5 years. I've blown up tens of thousands of dollars worth of electronics that are in a huge pile over there. So yeah, I can help you guys not waste your time and money. And usually the money that you'll save from not buying cursed electronics, yeah, you pay me 40 or 80 bucks and I can save you $100 or $150 or $200 and hours and hours and hours of your time, by recommending to you gear that's actually going to, you know, work and be durable, but also a gear setup that is going to do what you want it to do, right? Like, when I do these sessions, I have a big long list of questions that I ask to get me dialed in on the exact right rig for you. Where you fly, when you fly, how you fly, who your favorite pilot is, what you're doing with the footage, a whole bunch of others. So yeah, I try not to just throw out a random recommendation, because that might be the complete worst rig in the world for you, you know, and I don't want you to waste your money on something that's not good for you. So, of those questions that's not all the questions that I ask, but of those questions that I just mentioned, Spurton, if you want to tag me again and give me a ton of info, then I can make an actual educated recommendation for you. Or you can just spend some time on YouTube searching. It sounds like you want to buy a bind and fly. There are a bunch of reviewers that review all of the bind and flies, so you can just spend some time researching here on YouTube and probably find yourself a rig from some of these reviews that are out there that fits your needs. I don't buy bind and flies, so a lot of times I just don't know. And I'm also not really a reviewer, so I don't get sent any of the bind and flies. So it's typically kind of hard for me to recommend a bind and fly, and I actually don't recommend bind and flies because you're gonna crash them and you're gonna have to repair them. So what's the point? Like, yeah, I guess you save a couple of hours on the front end by buying a bind and fly, but you're just gonna have to tear it apart anyway. And when you custom build a rig, you can custom build it, like I was just saying, with a setup of parts that work really well for you, versus, the bind and flies are built to be as cost effective as possible, right? So that they can make as much money as possible, and to be as hype trainy as possible, so that so that they can sell as many of them as possible. There's not much of a consideration in these bind and flies for them to fly exactly the way that you specifically want your exact rig to fly, because we all fly differently. So yeah, I actually do not recommend a bind and fly, but sometimes I can pull a bind and fly recommendation out of my butt. Boys FPV says, what's the name of the office park Steel flies at? There's probably about 80 different office parks that Steel and the rest of us Atlanta guys fly at, so I have absolutely no clue how to answer that. Atlanta is just absolutely loaded with office parks. Rob Axelson says, hello collective, sorry I've been busy with a new job. Congratulations, brother. Hopefully it's fun. New jobs typically are. Doc says, get a 3D printed Whoop canopy with a fixed angle. They're usually the latest option. Nerdcopter makes a good one. I typically don't do the 3D printed canopy thing. I don't like the way that they hold the camera. Typically they don't have provisions to lock the camera perfectly horizontal, and that's a really big deal. If you've ever flown with a camera that's even a little bit off, it is a nightmare. Like, it just completely ruins your ability to track a dead straight line, and you're just kind of always sliding around. So yeah, I typically stay away from those 3D printed Whoop canopies. The Mobula 6 canopy, though, it's back there. But yeah, the Mobula 6 canopy is pretty amazing. Really lightweight. And the Runcam Nano that it's set up to hold in there is a great camera. I've been pretty impressed by it. So I think I'm just going to go that route. The other thing is that I don't like about the 3D printed Whoop canopies is that, being that they're TPU, they move in crashes and the camera moves around. And, you guys have seen me fly tiny whoops. Like, every 10 seconds I crash, and I crash hard. So I feel like that, having a camera that's basically soft mounted like that, it's just gonna be a mess. If the camera is mounted above the AIO, the camera's gonna be smashing into the AIO, which is not good for it. The AIOs don't hold up all that well anyway. Oh god, that tasted like just an asshole. So yeah, I've stayed away from the 3D printed Whoop canopies. Max Whalen says, could you decase the TrueRC antenna and save a gram? You could, but it would just become infinitely fragile, and you'd probably get one crash out of it before it became untuned, and then it's, and then you just wasted $20. So I would definitely not recommend doing that. Antennas, the tolerances inside of these antennas are incredibly minute. So even when a lot of times if the cap pops off of the antenna, a lot of times the amount of force that it takes to pop that cap off of it is also enough to detune the antenna on the inside. So usually by the time the cap on the antenna pops off, that thing is ruined. So yeah, definitely don't decase an antenna. That's gonna just make it way too fragile. And the process of decasing it might actually pull it out of tune. So you might literally ruin the antenna by decasing it. So yeah, don't do it. Everything says, did you see the Roster Motor Mythbusters video? I did. Turns out you... oh, no, I didn't. I saw... Did I? No, I didn't. I saw the thumbnail, and then I really wanted to watch it. Why did I not watch it? I guess it just got buried in my YouTube. I really wanted to watch that. Turns out using motor output limiting for 4S motors... I did watch it. Motor output limiting for 4S motors on a 6S quad results in a 10% decrease in both power and efficiency. that's at 100% throttle. At lower throttles, where we spend 99.9% of our time, the difference is pretty much negligible. So if you plug your battery and arm your quad and go full throttle, absolutely there's going to be a big decrease. But nobody really does that. So racers, I guess, are gonna really not want to do it. But us freestyle people, do this. Take DVR an entire flight and put your throttle value in your OSD, and then watch that DVR back of your flight. You will not believe how low of a throttle value 99.9% of your battery is spent at. Basically 20 to 30% is where we spend most of our time flying as freestyle pilots. So yeah, and I tested the 4S 6S thing with motor limiting for a little over a year, and blind tests I could not tell a difference, and run times I could not tell a difference. So yeah, in the real world, yeah, it's totally fine to run 2400 kV motors on 6S with a 70-ish% motor limiting, and there's a lot of benefits to doing that. So I really dig that. Hey, it's 4:01, and we didn't get to $200. Hold on, thank God, Jesus. What did I do with that other shirt? Here it is. Oh God! Oh, it's hard to get this shirt off and on, but I don't want to ruin it because it lives here now. I'm gonna put it on this chair just to celebrate the shit out of it. All right. Oh, a nice baggy men's long short sleeved shirt. Oh yeah. Look at this shirt. Teespring, yo. CiottiFPV.com. Get you one. Support your buddy. And then when you take a picture of yourself wearing the shirt, put it on Instagram, and I'll put it on mine. Maybe somebody will subscribe to your channel and be like, yo, that guy's cool. He supports the gangly man. All right, what else is going on? Your Majesty says Emax 1404 in 6000 kV also. Yeah, the Emax 1404, I love that it comes in a 6000 kV. Unfortunately, it's a super fragile motor. Those motors were just a nightmare in terms of durability for me. The bells were very weak, the stators were very weak, so I can't recommend the Emax 1404 Eco motor, which is a shame because it's great that it comes in 6000 kV. YouTube just did the thing. Scrolling back up. Abraham says, I know you live in the land of luxury when it comes to fly spots, but what do you do when you're looking for one in a new, unfamiliar place? Google Maps, Drive and Pray. I don't do the Google Maps thing. Charleston, it was very tough to find spots in Charleston. But I found a whole bunch. It's you just got to put the time in. Finding good spots takes time, period. Like, the end. It's the same thing with photography. Finding interesting locations for photography takes time. You have to put the time in. Just like all things in life. You put the time in and you can make something awesome happen. If you don't put the time in, sometimes maybe something awesome could happen, but typically not, So yeah, finding good spots, it's just a time game. Spend time in Google Maps or spend time driving around. What I used to do on my lunch breaks when I was still working in corporate is I had an hour lunch break. I would eat at my desk before my lunch break, and then on lunch I would drive a half an hour. I would pick a direction or a road, and I would drive a half an hour down that road, and I would turn around and drive a half hour back, and I would try to take a different road on the way back. And I would just look for spots the whole time. And if I saw something that, might be cool, I'd pull over, check it out, keep driving. And I would just do that every single day in Charleston. And eventually I found some really cool spots. Yeah, just like all things, got to put the time in. I wish I had a cheat code for you on that. just for myself, but there just kind of isn't. Jason Crabtree says Justin should throw those on a wing. Who's Justin? And what should be thrown on a wing? Espander says, I put nuts under the Vista to keep it off the carbon for better airflow instead of thermal tape. And also I run my wires under it. Oh, you know, that's interesting. Is there even I think there's a big cutout. It's not that big of a cutout. It's a small cutout. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know what would be better. Having airflow under it, or I feel like my gut says that the thermal transfer tape would be better, because that turns the carbon fiber base plate, at least the rear part of the carbon fiber base plate, into a heat sink. And yeah, I mean, air gaps work incredibly well. So like in motorsport, you run into this a lot at the racetrack for like track days, because you create just a ton of heat in the engine bay, and putting like a piece of metal and a piece of metal and having an air gap in between works extremely well at isolating the heat between those, typically between something that gets really hot and something that you don't want to get really hot, right? Like a turbo and like your power steering reservoir or your brake fluid reservoir, for example. So yeah, one of the tricks is to create an air gap. That works extremely well. We also see this on that new telescope that just got launched. There's like 4 or 5 pieces of, I don't know, mylar. It's probably some extravagant object, but on one side of that telescope, it's getting wailed on by the sun, and it gets, I don't know, up to like 11 billion degrees, but then the telescope is on the other side, and the differential in temperature between one side and the other of that telescope is hysterical. And yeah, it does it with a bunch of sheets, basically of metal with air gaps in between. Although it's in space, so it's not an air gap. That's interesting. Huh. But then the other thing that gets done, that we see a lot at the racetrack, is you add radiators. You add mass that will then get more airflow over it. And you know, with radiators it's different because you're passing liquid through it, and then the liquid gets into the metal. But I mean, it's basically just taking metal and heating it up so that it's a bigger surface for air to flow across. So that's why my gut tells me that the heat transfer tape, which is going to dump some of the heat into the carbon fiber. So I mean, it's going to work by just giving the heat a place to go. That's going to help. But then it's also going to use that carbon fiber base plate as a big ass radiator to get a bunch of airflow going over it, right? So my gut tells me that the thermal tape will help, will do more than just an air gap on the bottom of the Vista. But I could be totally wrong. I would love to test that, because, you know, I love testing things. But I won't. I'll just do the thermal tape and call it a day. Actually, you know what? I'll do the thermal tape, and then I'll see how hot the base plate gets. If the carbon fiber doesn't really get all that hot, then it might actually be better to do nuts on the bottom and have that airflow going under it. But if the carbon fiber gets warm, maybe even hot, then that's a pretty good sign that it's more effective. Peter Clark says, if you damaged one of the Mobula 6 ELRS motors, would you replace with the same motor or swap them out for 0802? I would swap them out for 0802s, I think. I do like the way that those 0702s fly. The way that they deliver power is really gradual. The 0802 25,000s are a little peaky, and you can get that under control with Throttle Expo, but I like those 0702s, and they're light. They're a very, very light motor. So initially I would put 0802s on to see how they were, but I would probably pick up a replacement 0702 just to have a really lightweight rig. I really love that rig at the weight that it's at, with the durability that it's at, and a part of that lightweight is the 0702 motor. So yeah, I really do look forward to putting 0802 25,000s on it though, to see how it is. Just gotta find one that's durable. Max Whalen says, do you like the T-Motor Pro 2 55 amp? I don't have one, so I mean, I like it in theory, and I like that a lot of people have had good luck with T-Motor electronics in terms of reliability, but that's all hearsay. So, yeah, that's all I can really say about it. Spander says, Mbps directly corresponds to picture quality, so after a while you'll be able to see when it's getting bad. That's good. You don't need to watch the Mbps all the time. That's cool. I'm assuming that I'll run focus mode, so that'll be nice to be able to see the outside start to get pixelated and be like, oh god, okay, easy, easy, easy. YouTube just did the thing again. FPV Kevlar says, how's the Diatone GTB? Blah 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 blah. No clue, FPV Kevlar. I don't do the bind and fly thing. Whitmead says, did you happen to see... nope. We talked about that a minute ago, Whit. If you rewind 10 minutes, you'll probably catch it. Aber the Ham rightly says, those are not air gaps, they're just gaps. Vacuum gaps, yeah. Vacuum gaps, that's what they're called. Kind of interesting that it works as... I bet you it doesn't work as well as a vacuum gap that as it would as an air gap. You know what I mean? But it's interesting that it still works. Tiago says vacuum is a thermal isolator. You stop the radiation heat and there isn't any heat transmission. Interesting. Christ, maybe a vacuum gap works even better than an air gap. Because there's no air in there for it to heat up. That's interesting. Sai says, I swear by thermal transfer tape in my VTX. Very cool. Glad I'm not the only one that found it. You can just get it on Amazon. It's just there. Type in thermal heat transfer tape. It's there. Michael Blade says, hey, Boys FPV says, name the best of the 80 Office Park Steel flies at. I mean, here's the other thing, Boys FPV. We are pretty protective of our spots here in Atlanta. There are a lot of pilots. So yeah, we don't really give out our spots. I know that kind of sucks, but here's the thing. If you're coming to Atlanta, just drive around and you'll see most of the spots because they're just everywhere. So yeah, and that's kind of another reason why we don't give out our spots is because you can't drive more than 15 miles without seeing one of them. Like you just drive down the road in Atlanta, you're like, oh shit. Oh. And there's just office parks everywhere. So I mean, you can also just drive around and like, ooh, there's an office park, pull up, fly it. Awesome. Drive down the road a little bit more. Ooh, there's another one, fly it. Ooh, there's another one, fly it. So I mean, you just drive around, find spots, fly them. It's great. Super fun. But yeah, we don't give out spot addresses or names or anything like that. It's just sort of, yeah, it's just one of those things. It's like skateboarding, you know? Skateboarders kind of do the same thing. Cool, I'm caught up on chat. Let's talk about how and why to build clean. Over here on the bench, let me move the chat over. So I have to rebind a whole bunch of my Crossfire receivers in a bunch of my rigs. So I have to pull the top plates off of a couple of rigs, and it gives me an opportunity to kind of show you guys how I build clean and talk about why I think it's worth the extra time to do it that way. Let me fix the bottom of the screen there. Move this up a little bit. Hey, there we go. that off the bottom of the screen? Yeah, there we go. Oh, I have the other gear fund up on this one. Well, that's fine. That's fine. What's up, Dan636? Okay, so let me put this stuff aside. I'm making some changes to the tiny lifters here. We're gonna talk more about that. Hey, tomorrow night, I think if tomorrow night is not a giveaway night, I think it's not. I think we did giveaways last Monday, right? So yeah, if tomorrow night is not a giveaway night, tomorrow night's live stream is going to be basically how to build a tiny lifter, the world's smallest Cinewhoop. So that'll be pretty cool. Come on back tomorrow night at 10 o'clock Eastern time, and I'll show you guys how I build these excellent little Insta360 Go 2 carrying 75 mil motor-to-motor tiny whoops, which, in my opinion, are the coolest way to do some gorilla whooping, because you can get amazing 2.7K fully stabilized footage, all gorilla whoop style, which is just amazing. And I am going to give this thing another chance with these Happy Model 0802s. I'm actually going to try it on these bi-blades. The problem with these bi-blades with this rig is going to be that they're too noisy. So, I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But let me really quickly pull these newbie drone motors off of here, because I'm going to be putting these newbie drone motors onto the fresh tiny whoop that I'm going to be building tomorrow night. Wait, or I can leave those on this rig. What should I do? Should this rig be totally murdered out with the dark colored motors, or should I leave or should this rig be black and gold with the newbie drone motors? The rig that I'm going to build tomorrow night is going to be all clear. It's going to be all clear stuff. You know what? No, I'm going to put the gold. Never mind. I'm going to put the gold motors on here because it'll be gold and red, all Iron Man like. That's right. And then this thing will be the completely murdered out build. Alright. Fargo252 says, getting a coworker into FPV from flying Mavics. What radio protocol would you suggest as a beginner? Might as well just bite the bullet and go ELRS now. ELRS is going to take over the world, so it's probably not the best for beginners, but switching radio protocols sucks. So if you can pick the right one from the jump, yeah, it's going to be a good thing. So, and ELRS isn't that hard, and there's tons of YouTube content. And yeah, I mean, if your coworker is going to stay with FPV, they're going to need to learn really early how to search and how to look stuff up and how to be stubborn. So might as well rip that Band-Aid off now. You know, if it's too much for him and he quits, or she, then it just kind of wasn't meant to be, and they quit sooner than later, which is kind of a good thing. You know what I mean? Like, the sooner if it's not meant to be and they quit after a week, then they saved a bunch of time and money. Versus, you know, they limp along for 6 months, spend a whole bunch of money, and then eventually go, I can't do this. You know, that's rough. Because then they're like pretty invested, and like, you know, they'll get some money back on FPV Exchange or FPV Facebook Marketplace, but still, you know, you never get 100% of your money back. So I really think that, like, I understand going bind and fly for your first rig. I did. I totally get it. It gets you up in the air as soon as possible so that you can see if you're going to like flying. I don't know how anybody could not like flying, but yeah, it gets you up in the air as soon as possible. I like that. But yeah, a little bit of complexity up front, I think, is a good thing to make sure that, yeah, you're stubborn enough to stay with it. Because you really have to be. You really do have to be stubborn to kind of stay in FPV. I think that's something that we take for granted. Is that, you know, and I think that's a part of the common bond between all of us, is that we were all stubborn enough to stay with it, and that's a unique type of person, you know. I think it's also one of the reasons that FPV kind of typically attracts people with I guess one way of saying it is like people with more time than money kind of thing. Like, you know, photography drones are just spend a whole bunch of money and then it handles everything for you. Whereas with us, it's like you got to put the time in. The money is not, you know, these things are not very expensive, all things considered. But you got to be willing to put the time in, and I think the earlier that people see that, the better, because it doesn't change. There's not a point where it's like, oh great, I know everything now. I don't have to spend any more time. Like, that just kind of never happens, which is fine, you know, keeps us honest. All right, there we go. I did some tiny prop balance testing the other day, so I was moving motors around and putting different props on different things. Okay, there we are. All right, good. So, oh yeah, and I was gonna. This is going full murder, so let's throw these props on and I can show it to you guys in fully blacked out spec. What's up, chat? Athix says, found a motor comparable to what I want. Brother Hobby made a 1402. Jesus, 9500 kV. Now I got to find a set. 1402, that's an interesting size. That motor will definitely stay cool, but the problem with the O2, the problem with that O2 stator height is that it's kind of not tall enough. So like a 2mm tall motor to a 3mm tall motor, the weight of the motor is not going to increase all that much, but the amount of work and power that motor can produce is going to change a lot. When you go up in stator height, you get a lot more power. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that 1402 might be a little bit underpowered, even though it's got a lot of kV. Make sure you're putting that on a really, really, really lightweight rig. CH3 says, did you ever try to make a 75mm pusher? No. But I did a 85mm pusher, and it was just awful. Pusher rigs sacrifice a lot of flight performance and efficiency because it's much more important. All of the work gets done above the propeller. Once the air comes off of the propeller and gets pushed down, all the work has been done, and it doesn't really matter nearly as much if there's obstructions below the propeller. So yeah, with pushers, you lose a lot of performance. And on the smaller rigs, you're in dire need of performance. So yeah, pushers really don't make sense until you get up to like 2.5-inch, realistically 3-inch prop. But even on those rigs, they don't perform nearly as well as the puller version. So there you guys go. There it is, all blacked out. It's going to be very loud with these bi-blades, but I do want to give it a shot. So that is good to go. This is all the stuff that you guys are going to see tomorrow night, and that could be pretty cool. I'm looking forward to that. Let me throw this on a bag real quick. Abraham says, do you regular or thick glide arms? Regular. 5mm thick glide arms are the ones that you want. The 6mm thick glide arms are actually too strong, and you will start breaking base plates rather than breaking arms. And breaking a base plate is just the goddamn worst because it takes so long to do that repair. The 6mm glide arms only really make sense on a rig like this, which is actually the rig that I wanted to work on here today first. This is a cinematic rig built to go really fast, thus the 40-degree up tilt GoPro. This is a rig that, as a cinematic rig, really won't get crashed. So yeah, the 6mm arms are great for rigs that are not going to get crashed because you're not going to break your base plate. But the arms being this thick, they do a really good job at isolating the vibrations coming off the motors and props from the rest of the frame. Boys FPV says it would be cool to video a rip at steel stop. Are you saying that it would be cool to see me fly a spot that Steel has flown? I have lots of those. I have lots of flight edits from the last couple of years that I've been living here in Atlanta at spots that Steel has flown. So yeah, lots of content here on the channel for you. If that's what you were trying to say, then yeah, I got you covered already. Steady Eddie says, is that the final TPU mount for the Go 2 holder? Is the STL available? Looks pretty solid. Is that the final TPU mount for the Go 2 holder? That's one of them, yeah. I haven't tested the new one, actually, that WOM-FPV created. I don't know if they're available yet, but they're gonna. WOM-FPV is gonna make a Thingiverse. Maybe he already has. But he is planning on making a Thingiverse for the Go 2 mounts. And yeah, they're really, really good. Budget FPV didn't tag me, but I just happened to see it anyway. Budget FPV, when you type Ciotti in your message, type CiottiFPV with no space, and it'll light up an orange for me so that I know you're talking to me. Joshua Bardwell was talking about 2107 motor. I was wondering, can you look at a bell housing like a flywheel? Sort of. When you say bell housing, when I hear bell housing, that's a piece that goes around the clutch and flywheel in a car so that if it explodes, it doesn't embed shit in your legs or like cut your legs off completely. What I think you mean is motor bell. I think your question is, can you think of a motor bell as a flywheel? Absolutely, but the weight of the motor bell pales in comparison to the weight of the propeller that you're putting onto the motor. So obsessing over the weight of the motor bell, in my opinion, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Because it's just, and the difference between, here's the real thing, the difference between the weights of the different motor bells that are available is very, very slight, like fractions of a gram, versus you can put a propeller on that's like 5 grams, or you can put a propeller on that's 4 grams or 3.5 grams. That's really where you want to focus, is keeping the propellers as lightweight as possible. With motors, the best thing to do is the biggest performance improvement that comes from a lightweight motor comes from the fact that the motor is mounted all the way out on the end of the arm. So if you can save weight, if you can find a motor this is why I fly the T-Motor F40 series of motors, the Pro 2 and the Pro 4. These are the lightest weight motors that are still durable. Steel's motors are very lightweight, but everyone I've ever talked to about them has complained about them being not durable. And they're only, I don't even think they're lighter than the Pro 4s anymore. I think the Pro 4s are actually lighter than the new Steel motors. So yeah, also the steel motors are just absurdly expensive. So yeah, something that's really fragile and really expensive, like that's not for me. But yeah, budget, you're kind of on the right track, but if you were to make like a priority list of things that actually affect performance, the weight of the motor bell would be very, very, very low down on that list. There are many other things that you can focus on that will have a much bigger effect for you. Okay, so this is kind of like one of my typical builds. We're going to talk a little bit about building clean, how to do it, why to do it. The biggest thing for me in terms of why to build clean, because it does take time and it does take effort. The reason that I'm willing to spend that time and effort is that like serviceability is a big deal in FPV. Like we crash a lot, and pretty quickly you're going to kind of get burned out on repairing stuff. If you build it clean from the get-go, when you have to service it and repair it, it's going to be much simpler. And a lot of times you're going to be able to do repairs out in the field. And that really makes a big difference. It also does have an impact on the way that the rig flies. If you just have like a big rat's nest of wires up in here, there's a good chance that you're going to, like your video system, for example, if you're on analog, is going to pick up some garbage, and you're going to have like noise in the video. So yeah, it really makes sense for a bunch of different reasons to try to build your rigs clean. One of the main things that I really like to do is twisted pairs with the wires. Whenever you've got like a bundle of wires like coming out of your receiver, for example, or coming out of the VTX, take those wires, be that 4 wires or 3 wires, and just spin those guys up. Spin them all together so that they're a nice little, like this. They're a nice little bundle of twisted wires that's going to go from point A to point B. That's going to keep them together. And like, so for example, right, something happens to your receiver when you're out in the field flying. You can look down under here in between the ESC and the base plate, and you can see that there's 2 bundles of wires. One of them has a yellow wire in it. A lot of times that's video. Maybe your receiver, in this case, my receiver bundle does have yellow in it, but yeah, it just makes it kind of easy to see, oh, that's my receiver wire bundle. What's going on? Oh, look, there's that wire got mangled up under there. I really prefer to run. So, all of this stuff is very dependent upon how you build your rigs, right? Like if you put your VTX in the front, it's going to be totally different. For an analog build, this is, I've built tons and tons and tons and tons of these things. This is kind of the setup for that's the other thing, right? Each frame is going to be different. Each frame is going to have different provisions. So with the glide frame, this is kind of the layout that has worked the best for me. Camera, flight controller, ESC, VTX with the receiver zip tied in one little bundle, and then 1000 UF capacitor here. This is the only rig that I've got that has a UFL to SMA setup here, just basically because I had one of these long antennas. I really prefer to do a UFL antenna that goes directly to the VTX. This little UFL to SMA setup here wastes around 10 grams. Like this antenna setup here versus a direct UFL antenna setup of the same length with the same antenna is going to be about a 10 gram weight savings. And that's a big deal. So, but yeah, in this rig that's not going to get crashed, I had this longer antenna, so I used an SMA setup, but I actually don't like this all that much. My main problem with this UFL to SMA setup is right here. This when you crash and this antenna gets hit, this little joint here, it just breaks. And then eventually you've got essentially no antenna, and it's just annoying because then you got to de-shrink wrap your VTX to pull this back out. Another kind of subtle thing that I do to clean the builds up and make them a little bit more serviceable is I run these race wire LEDs on all my rigs. If you don't if you never want the LEDs, you can just run regular race wires. But if you ever want the LEDs to be there, and it's really cool to have the LEDs here, especially when you're flying with somebody else, because they can see you really easily and then they can follow you and get really cool footage of you flying around. If you want to turn these LEDs off, you just put black electric tape. That's why on this rig I have this black electric tape here. If I'm on set, I can just peel this black electric tape off and put it over the LEDs, and they do not shine through even one single layer of black electric tape. So they're easy to turn off with that. And what I really love about them is that if you bang up a motor, you just take your soldering iron right here, bang, 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 you're done. That motor comes off, drop the new one on, and you're back up in the field. You don't have to play this game where the top plate is here and you're like sneaking it up under and like running the wires and all that. That's all nonsense. You know, you can hold the LED race wire down with a zip tie, or you can do something like this with electric tape. And then this is all solid. You know, this whole setup here, you probably will never need to touch. As you play around with different motors or brake motors, you just do all of your work right here, and it's nice and simple. And this is also, you know, this is a nice, straightforward, easy little setup. If you get prop strikes, a lot of times the prop strike is going to hit the LED race wire rather than hitting and cutting the motor wires. That's really nice. One of the other things I do to clean the builds up is that I solder the motor wires on at an angle here. Let me see if the camera will play ball. There you go. So the outside ones you solder at a 90-degree angle. Right here. So the outside is at a complete 90-degree angle, and then the inside two you're going to do at a 45-degree angle. This way, as you crash through trees and the branches do this, there is as little wire for the branches to catch and rip out and cut and mangle. And then it also allows you to run the wires up like this. You always want to put a little bit of extra wire. I have a lot of extra wire here in the front because this rig is set up where I can move it to a 5.5-inch dead cat front arm. So I have a lot of extra wire here in the front. In the rear, this is representative of the normal amount of extra wire that I like. And by running this little bit of extra wire here in the rear, if the arm breaks really violently and it really bends down and pulls these wires, there's enough wire here for it to not rip a pad off of your ESC. That is actually another reason that I like these LED race wires, is you've got two more banks of pads to rip off in a really violent crash, in hopes that you don't rip a pad off of your $60, $70, $80 ESC, right? So that's another thing that I really do like about these LED race wires, or even just the regular race wires, is yeah, there's a pretty good chance. What is it? There's a 66% chance that you'll rip pads off of this versus the expensive ESC. You know, and these obviously cost practically nothing. Other tips for building clean are to just like think, really. I mean, that's one of the biggest thing. Like, as you're putting the stuff together, as you're routing the wires, just like think about it. Don't just sit there jamming out to music, getting super high. Pay attention, especially when you're doing like your, you know, I've built this same rig over and over and over again, so I don't have to pay as much attention. But yeah, the first time you're doing a rig, just really think about it. Think about how it's going to act. Think about what's going to happen in crashes. And just try to figure out a way to run the wires in a way that's going to make a lot of sense. You know, I sacrifice a little bit of serviceability by running this bundle of wires from the front to the rear for the receiver and the VTX under the ESC. The main reason that I do that is I want these video wires to be as far away from these the battery leads as possible. The battery leads have a lot of like ugly electrical noise in them. So as an example, when I move this, I think I'll move, this will be one of the rigs that I move over to DJI. When I move it over to DJI, I will probably run the wires up over the ESC because, yeah, that noise problem doesn't really exist with digital. And yeah, having a little coiled up bundle of wires here up over the ESC will be much easier to service down the road if something weird happens. But we'll see. I don't know. I also like to... I also love having the wires under the ESC because it holds them in. I'm always afraid that the wires are going to kind of like sneak out the side and get hung up in the propellers or get caught on a branch or stuff like that. So we'll see. We'll see how that build goes. But yeah, just be very thoughtful when you're doing a build the very first time to kind of just think about all these things. Think about the fact that, you know, if it breaks, you want to be able to fix it. Maybe you're somebody that doesn't crash a lot, and then it's less of a problem. One of the things that I'm doing here is I need to get at this bind button, and I would love to. I didn't give myself enough space. I would love to rotate this receiver around the other way, than it's mounted now, so that the bind button is on the outside, so it's easier to get to. But unfortunately, this is one of the only problems with running your cables short. I tend to give myself a little tiny bit of extra slack on the cables, but I keep them pretty short and tight. This is a situation where these cables from the receiver to the flight controller are too short for me to rotate this receiver around. So I'm just not gonna. But then at some point, I'll put DJI in this, and at that point, I will probably, hopefully, extend these wires out. I'll probably change the flight controller at that point, because this is not a flight controller that has a 9-volt back on it. So, yeah, we'll see. Maybe the receiver pads that I'm hooking up to on the new flight controller will be on the back of the 20x20, and that should give me enough room to then rotate this around. But for today, I'm just going to get into this bind button and, yeah, get it all set up. Although, it is 442, and we have talked about how and why to build clean, and I feel absolutely awful still. So I think I'm going to get caught up on chat, and we're going to maybe end this a couple of minutes early, because I just want to go put a little bit more food in my stomach and then lay down, so that, you know, I don't throw up live on stream. Because nobody likes that. And yeah, all I need to do is push the bind button and rebind this. So it's really no big deal. Any other questions that you guys have about building clean and tight, drop them in the chat. Let me pull the chat book over to the left side of the screen here, and let's see what you guys are talking about. Mr. Huggy says, I prefer to have a clean and dirty parts of my quad, mounting the VTX up front next to the camera so the leads don't get near the ESC, and the stack at the back. Also, Mamba EM shield helps. I've used that Mamba EM shield a couple times. It has not done shit for me. It's certainly not going to hurt anything, so there is would kind of make a lot of sense to just sort of use them on everything. They're also kind of cheap. But I have not had electrical noise situations that were helped by that thing. In certain cases, I'm sure it will help. Just personally, whatever the problems that I've been having in those cases, when I've used that thing, it hasn't really helped. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it's not a miracle cure for you guys, but it's nice to have one floating around, because when you start to run into video noise problems, it's kind of hard to troubleshoot. I don't know where it is. It might be in a build at the moment. I love the idea of putting the VTX up front. You know, the very first 5-inch build I ever did, I had the VTX up front. I really liked it up there. The only problem with doing that is finding a UFL antenna that's long enough. But TrueRC does have some really long UFL antennas that you'd be able to run all the way the length, all the way out the back. So yeah, that's a cool way to set it up. Hillside FPV says, have a problem, just finished up new Cinewhoop Tooth Fairy. And now I need a GoPro mount. Can't find any SCL. Do you have one? I do not. I buy all of mine from Brain FPV. I'm sorry, Brain 3D rather. Yeah, Tooth Fairy uses the newer style. Yeah, Brain 3D is who's got the mount that you want. Jason Crabtree says, given the sheer number of right-hand circular polarized antennas that you have, are you going to run DJI with the stock left-handed circular? Yeah, I am. I looked for an antenna setup that would be right-hand, and there are some, but I really wanted to get that iFlight crystal. And it's bright white when it's when it's right. Oh, wait, no, they don't even make it in right hand. There just aren't. I couldn't find the antenna options that I wanted for the goggle side that were right hand circular. So I just said to hell with it. I've gone through. I don't have that many right hand circular polarized antennas left, and I'm not moving the whole fleet. Mainly just the cinematic rigs are going over to DJI. And those are the rigs that don't get crashed, so those are the rigs that I won't blow up too many antennas on. So yeah, I'll be totally fine in that respect. The analog rigs are staying together. They're going to continue to be the basher rigs, and so I'll continue to smash the remainder of these right-hand circular polarized antennas that I've got. So yeah. Whack FPV is in the house. He says, I'd recommend to run the Vista from an external BEC versus a flight controller BEC. Yeah, I'm really tempted to do that. But my God, it makes the build a lot simpler to... and I am planning on using Acon and T-Motor flight controllers, which are really high-end. So in theory, they'll be okay. Those of you that have been powering your Vistas off of your flight controllers, what has your experience been? Quickly, if you don't mind. Because I want to shut this down. My stomach is feeling worse and worse. Whack, I actually do that on all of my 3-inch Ripsqueak builds. I run the RunCam hybrid off of an external 5-volt BEC for reliability mainly, because yeah, the hybrid DVR board pulls a good amount of amps, as will the Vista. So at first I was like, ooh, I'm gonna have to do it on all of these, but then I haven't heard that. I haven't heard a lot of people saying that they've had issues powering the Vistas from the flight controllers. Fargo says, you've always had clean builds. I've always learned a lot about building just from looking at yours. Nice, dude. Thanks. That makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside. Espander says, my Vistas are on VBAT. Oh. I guess, is it the air unit that you can't power off of VBAT? I didn't think you could power them off of VBAT. Well, if I can power them off of VBAT, I'll just do that, because the battery pads on my ESCs are all at the rear. Frank Nicholas says, all my air units and Vistas are powered from my flight controllers. Interesting. Blinda Binda says, where can I find Mobula 6 ELS? Anybody know where they are? Anybody know if they're in stock anywhere? Interesting. I didn't know you could put them on. I haven't done any research on the DJI stuff yet. That's why I want to have a DJI week of live streams here, where I just read a bunch about them and figure them all out. Espander says, Vista takes 6S, air unit 4S. That's what it is. The air unit will only take 4S. That's it. So the Vistas will take 6S, huh? Whack FPV says, Expander, I've blown many Vistas running from VBAT. That's why I use external VECs now. Aha! Interesting. Okay. So that kind of makes me want to run them from the flight controller. On the cinematic rigs, I'll probably run the Vistas off of the flight controller. On the freestyle rig, I'll probably put it on an external, because that rig is just gonna get the hell beaten out of it. And yeah, an external back is gonna be a little bit more durable. In theory, I don't know. None of the BECs seem to be all that durable. So I don't know. It could be a roll of the dice either way. I mean, they're all using the same little BECs, you know. Abraham says, hangover like an adult, take 2 Excedrin, eat something greasy, chug a pint of water, take a nap, wake up a new person. Yeah, pretty much. Jason Crabtree says, you can run them off the battery, but it's probably better to make sure it's filtered with a cap. Run mine off the battery through the flight controller. Okay. Remy Tim says, it's 4S VBAT max for the Vista, right? Nope. The Vista will take 6S. The air unit is what you're thinking of, Dan. Frank Nicholas says, voltage surge from VBAT or a risk. Yeah, that's what I'm worried about on the freestyle rig. You can make a spike filter to help. I've heard good things about those spike filters. The external BEC is going to serve a similar function as those spike filters. Technically, though, you would want to have both. You would want to have both the spike filter. Well, that's actually interesting. If you run the Vista off of VBAT with a spike protector in line, it's the same amount of extra work as an external BEC, and then basically the BEC that you're using is the built-in Vista BEC. And you know, when we talk about like which BEC is going to be the most, you know, like where my mind goes, right, is like which BEC is going to be the most reliable? The one that's on the flight controller, the one that you put in externally, or the one inside the Vista? The Vista is really expensive, and from what I've heard, they're extremely durable. So I think I'm talking myself into thinking that the most stout but clean setup would be VBAT off the ESC to the spike filter to the Vista, so that we're using the BEC in the Vista, which in theory is going to be the best of the BECs, but then we've also got the spike protector in line. I could totally be wrong, but that's just kind of that's just my thinking. Brain broken. I knew this stream was gonna be rough. 453. Hey, I don't know. Oh, look at that! That spike filter that Frank linked to goes on the battery lead with a capacitor. That's pretty slick. That's interesting. I would want it in line though. How could I put that in line? I just put it in line. I just run wires right into and out of it. That's interesting. I mean, I could show you guys. You know, we have the technology. Look at that. I do not like having this big booger hanging on the XT60. I really like to battery strap the XT60 down to the side of the battery. Really helps in crashes. So I would not run this in this configuration unless I absolutely can't find a spot for the capacitor on this build. I mean, we'll figure that out once I start putting DJI Vistas into the or Caddx Vistas rather into these glides. But I don't know. We'll see. I'll figure it out. I love the idea of a spike filter in line though. Michael D says, made it home just in time. RDQ has the Mobula 6 in stock. Awesome. Riot 9 says, been using T-Motor ESCs that have a 10-volt out built in. Oh, that's right. Would rather not use anything on the flight controller that doesn't need to. Yeah, me too. I forgot about that. Yeah, some of the ESCs will have 9 and 10 volt BECs built in. I'll have to check on the Acons. I don't think the Acons do, but I'll take a look. Frank Douglas says, spike filters go on the battery lead / ESC. I feel like I've seen them. They're set up for being inline, though. Maybe I'm wrong. Does not include the XT60. That's optional. It's only the board and cap. Solder battery lead through the holes. Yeah, cool. That's what I'm thinking. What's up, Slat? How are you, brother? You got here just in time for me to go off air. Because I feel like I got hit by a tractor. Because I don't really drink anymore. And I drank all the things last night. But I had an absolute blast. If you want to see something silly, rewind back to the beginning of the stream. I was wearing a women's shirt. If you're into that kind of thing. And I told the story in the first 5 minutes. So you might get a kick out of that. You might not. But, you do you, friends. I'm going to go lick my wounds and try to not feel like death. Thanks for hanging, buddies. I'll be back tomorrow night at... let me give you something fun to watch. I'll be back tomorrow night at... I don't know, some point. What time? 10? 10 Eastern tomorrow night. We're going to build a tiny lifter from scratch. It's a plug-and-play-ish build, but, technically sort of from scratch. Here's some of that rad night footage that you guys always love watching from one of my favorite spots in Atlanta. Get you guys some music going here, too. Hold on. Come on. Easy. Okay, here we go. 10 o'clock tomorrow night, Eastern. See you guys then. But for now, here's some frying. Hopefully this song doesn't suck. Hold on. I need to quit out of OBS. Be right back. It's going to pinwheel for a second. I promise I'll be right back. All right, cool. Love you guys. I'll see you tomorrow night. Enjoy this. Be good.